The number one biggest mistake that everybody, I mean, literally everybody makes when getting into a street fight, right? And I know this firsthand because I've been going out so often in so many of these venues in so many different cities. I've been in so many crazy situations. I've witnessed so many crazy situations, how these fights start. It's usually over a girl or a guy, right? When girls fight, same thing. Same thing, they do the same thing. That's why I said everybody, I didn't just say guys. Every street fight that I've ever seen and that I've been a part of, this is the biggest mistake that everybody makes, okay? And the number one mistake is you tend to underestimate your opponent. And usually that's what leads you to getting your ass kicked. The person who underestimates their opponent, I found, gets their ass kicked most of the time. Not all, but most of the time. They end up losing that fight. So I come at this from a different perspective, and I have been in a lot of fights myself. I've gotten very good at de-escalating situations, but there are times where I've had to put my hands on somebody, right? And I don't even like doing that, especially in my position. I try to avoid it as much as possible because I don't need lawsuits. I'm tired of like cops being called. I don't want to be in handcuffs, right? I mean, I've been there, done that. I don't need it in my life anymore. I see people, especially younger people, make that mistake all the time. They end up in handcuffs. It's just not worth it, really, at the end of the day. Violence is never worth it. However, when you have no choice, sometimes you have to defend yourself. This is where, like, if you've had any type of training, whether it's boxing, MMA, that's big these days, martial arts, it will help you. And I grew up taking martial arts. I grew up in a time before internet. Me and my brothers and sisters were always looking for any excuse to get out of the house. We would involve ourselves in so many activities. That's how I got wrapped up in football and baseball. I just want to get out of the house. I just want to get out of the house. And then martial arts. However, martial arts was mostly because I was getting, picked on when I was younger. So I was like, hey, I want to take karate. And I took karate for a good, I want to say it was a little over a decade. So I got my black belt when I was about 16, almost 17 years old. I competed in a lot of tournaments. See, when you hear about fighting, that's another thing. If somebody tells you they can fight, you automatically have these perceptions in your mind like, oh, what are you, a tough guy? You a tough guy, whatever. I never thought of myself as that, personally. And some of the best fighters that I trained with, that I met, also didn't really think of themselves that way, right? Because we're not big guys. Like, none of these guys were big. I'm not big either. But I did really well in tournaments. I did really well during Kumite. I have a lot of trophies to show for this. I'm gonna have to dig them out of my storage and post them on my social media. But I have a lot of martial arts trophies from winning tournaments, right back in the late 80s, 90s. I have trophies like this big, right, for Kumite. It's basically sparring. Again, people have the wrong perception of that because I was really just like a tournament fighter, what you call a point fighter. I mean, it's no different than like you watch Karate Kid, the tournament and the Karate Kid, right? And you just get the point. So I got very good at just point fighting, right? It's like, I'm not trying to knock the person out and I'm not trying to hurt them. I'm just trying to get the point. It's like 3 points, you win. So I'm trying to get the points. So when something's open, boom, that's all it takes. It's like a quick roundhouse or what, a quick tap to the head. You don't need to try to knock the guy out. But anyway, I'm a point fighter. I've always been pretty confident in my ability to defend myself. However, I never purposely go out of my way to provoke fights. I never purposely go out of my way to escalate them. If anything, I'm trying to de-escalate them, right? I'm trying to find common ground so it doesn't go anywhere. However, sometimes it does, right? Sometimes it does. And when you're in the situation where somebody is like provoking you, or you have no other choice but to fight, the last thing you want to do, okay? The last thing you want to do is underestimate your opponent and overestimate yourself, especially if you're a bigger guy, right? A lot of bigger guys, I notice, will tend to overestimate the fact that they could kick somebody's ass. And many times that's not the case, right? Sometimes it is because they have size, they have strength. But if you match up with somebody who can actually fight, you're going to get your ass kicked, right? I've seen a lot of small guys beat the crap out of somebody like much bigger. And I'm not even surprised by that because, again, I took martial arts growing up and I competed in a lot of these tournaments. So I saw a lot of smaller guys be able to knock the wind out of a much bigger guy. And I've been in that position myself where somebody in a tournament, a much bigger guy leaves himself wide open, or there's a wide open shot and I throw a quick side kick and it hits him like right here in the gut. And the guy like literally goes down and he has to catch his breath. The worst thing you could do is underestimate your opponent, especially if you know how to fight. Because if you know how to fight, you will tend to do that. You will tend to think that nobody else can fight and you could kick everyone's ass, right? And you might be able to, but you should never go into it with that. You should never go into a fight thinking that. Instead, what you should do is overestimate your opponent. Not removing confidence from yourself though, but you're fighting someone you don't know, right? So a lot of times when you overestimate your opponent, it forces you to be more on guard, to be more alert, to really give it your best. And anytime you see an opening where, you could throw a punch, you do it. And usually, to be honest, when a fight starts, especially if you're somebody who knows how to fight, and then you get into a fight with, say it's a street fight, you can tell very quickly if the person knows how to fight, right? Just by their stance, by the stance that they take. The times where I would get worried when I fought somebody was when they took the same stance I would, right? Which is like more of a martial arts stance where it's from the side. I can't do it because I'm sitting here. I'll have to do like a full demonstration sometime. But I fight from the side. I do not fight straight up like this. I will only give you my side, right? I will only give you my side. And I'll be in a position where I can throw a kick if I need to, right? And I'll be in a position where I keep my distance. So if you try to jab or if you try to throw a hook, all I have to do is just swing back, and then throw the counter punch. A lot of the ways that I used to like win tournaments and get points was by doing exactly that, is just standing in a position where the person would throw the punch and then I would quickly throw the counter and get the point.
Get the point! Get the point! Shoot him, Mike! He's hallucinating!
Like whether it's a punch or a kick. Personally, I like to use kicks rather than punches because punches can only reach so far. And especially if you're fighting somebody bigger than you, you can only reach so far. I'd rely on the kick because my leg could go much further than my arm. I always take a stance from the side. You don't have much of a target when you have my side. And if you try to throw anything, it's just a matter of me just moving or bobbing my head or blocking, but I don't even bother to do that. I don't even want to get hurt blocking your stupid punch or your kick. I just rather move out of the way and then throw the punch automatically. So that was always my style of fighting, and it still is today. Although I almost never, ever fight anymore, right? But if I have to, I can. Usually when the fight starts, you could tell within seconds if the person has had any training. But that doesn't mean that you should suddenly do a victory lap because you're identifying that this person doesn't know how to fight. You don't know. He could throw like a really hard punch and you can go down. I've seen guys who can't fight, who are uncoordinated. When they hit, they can hit pretty hard. If that hit connects, you're going down. So it's very important that if you are ever in the unfortunate position where you have to fight and there's no other way out, maybe it's a life or death situation, especially in that situation, you don't want to underestimate your opponent. Instead, you want to overestimate and then almost kind of underestimate yourself. At least in my mind, that forces me to try harder. It just makes me a better fighter. I think I mentioned before, like back when I was going to these karate tournaments when I was like a teenager and then in my 20s, they didn't really separate the adults from the kids. So I distinctly remember fighting guys with mustaches when I was like a pimple-faced 15-year-old. I think the first tournament I went to, I was like maybe 13 or 14. So it was crazy. It was like 22. I think it was like 12 on up was considered adult or something. They would never allow this today. However, it gave me a whole lot of confidence. It gave me a lot of confidence, especially the dojo where I was taking martial arts. I went to like 2 or 3 different ones because I wanted to keep learning more and from different instructors. And I did. I learned a lot of different fighting techniques. Some of my favorite fighters back in the day, you might think it'd be like Van Damme or something like that. I liked Van Damme. You have to be old enough to remember, but his name is Bill Wallace, Superfoot Bill Wallace.
His leg has been timed at 60 miles per hour.
He's still around, he's still alive, and he still does these training videos on YouTube every once in a while. He's a good person to learn from, I think. Like even just watching some of these videos. It just depends what your style is, right? Some guys are into this new like MMA stuff. Some people like jujitsu. I don't get the whole jujitsu thing personally, that, rolling around on the ground and everything like that. I haven't really fought somebody who does jujitsu, but I would always usually just keep my distance, like again, from the side and far enough to where I could just throw a kick and keep you at a distance, right? And throw a kick and just try to hurt you that way, try to get you to stop that way rather than getting involved and grappling. Yeah, if you get your hands on me and like wrestle me or grapple me, I'd probably lose the fight, right? I don't do that stuff. You have to stick with what you're good at, right? What you're comfortable with. Some people are good at that, right? Some people are good at rolling around on the ground and doing the jujitsu or the MMA stuff, but that's not really my forte. It's not something I learned, and I'm not looking to get into any more fights. I just go with what I have and I just try to de-escalate as much as possible, which is what you should do. That's another thing I should probably mention is because emotions are high, tempers are flaring, that's when you want to stay calm, and that's something I noticed in a lot of these street fights where the person who loses is always the one who A, underestimated his opponent, and B, was totally emotionally out of control. Okay, so it's almost something you want from your opponent. You want them to be completely unhinged emotionally, even though sometimes if they're big, it might look scary if they're screaming and yelling. That's kind of good, right? It means that they're not thinking straight. They're not thinking straight. And if you are, right, you can probably kick their ass. And that's the thing, is like when I was competing in tournaments, like I said, I never thought of myself as a tough guy. I mean, internally I am. I'm a pretty strong person. I looked at fighting as an art form, and it still is to me, right? To me, it's still more like an art, especially when I was competing. It's like just tapping to get the point, or just hitting them hard enough to get the point, and just looking for those openings and looking for weaknesses in the person's fighting style and looking for areas that you can attack, and then identifying where their strengths are and avoiding there, right? Avoiding whatever strengths that they have where you could see like, okay, this guy's got a pretty solid jab. I'm going to stay away from the jab. Why am I going to try to attack the jab? But he's weak here. He's weak on his left side. I'm going after the left side, right? So I was always strategic that way, even in fighting. You have to be strategic. To me, it's just more of an art form. I look at a guy like Pacquiao, right? Pacquiao just started fighting again. He's 46 years old. He's not intimidating to look at. You know, you wouldn't think he's like a tough guy, even though he is. When I see him fight, I mean, I could see the technique. It's more like kind of like an art to him, right? And really fighting is an art, especially people who don't understand fighting. They think of it too much as brawn, muscle, knock the guy out. I'm going to punch hard as I can. I'm going to try to hit him in the face. I'm going to try to knock him down. Maybe if you're a big guy and you're strong, that should be your fighting style, right? But for us normal sized guys or smaller guys, you have to be a little more clever with how you fight, how you punch, how you block, how you protect yourself, your defense, as well as your offense. I mean, I can't even count how many fights I've seen over my lifetime, street fights. Not talking about kumite like karate matches. I'm talking about on the street. Fights I've seen so many, right? Even to this day, it just never blows my mind how these fights start. It's always over a girl. That's the last thing I'm going to fight over, like a girl. Just checking out my girl. So what, man? So what? I mean, she's hot. What's wrong with you, pussy? Most of the reasons for fighting are just completely not worth it. It's just completely asinine. Get a hold of yourself. Get a hold of your emotional state. Be the bigger man. You know, try to calm things. Don't escalate things like, what, bitch? Right? Because emotions are running high. You have to be the bigger man, right? It's kind of an old saying, but you do. You have to be the bigger man. When all else fails and the person wants to keep coming after you, you know, then, you know, yeah, sometimes unfortunately you have to fight. If you've never learned how to fight, I encourage you to take at least some sort of self-defense class, take some sort of martial arts or boxing classes. I would mix it up, especially these days. I would mix it up. I mean, if I were to start over, I'd take a mixture of martial arts, boxing, UFC stuff, the MMA. I'd take a combo of it all just to be a more well-rounded fighter, right? Because really all I've learned my entire life is really Shorin Ryu karate. That's what I learned, by the way, where I got my black belt. It's a old school Okinawan Japanese karate. It's called Shorin Ryu karate. Right? There's another similar style called Shotokan karate, but mine was mostly Shorin Ryu because that was the school that was closest to my parents' house, so I took it. It was actually a school that's now defunct. It was called Karate USA. They were kind of big in San Francisco back in the late 70s and 80s, and then they went defunct probably somewhere in the 90s or something like that. But by then I was already on to another studio, dojo. I continued to train in the same style, right? Whereas today I would probably mix it up. I'd probably learn other forms of fighting and self-defense. If you're in a position where you're just starting out, I would encourage you to do that. And if you don't have the money to take these classes, because they ain't cheap, I mean, even back then, I think my parents were paying like $100 a month, which is kind of pricey back then. I mean, that was like back in 84, that long ago, I'm that old. That's when I started. 83 or 84, yeah. And I didn't stop until what was it? Probably like late 90s, early 2000s, somewhere around there. I don't know what it would cost these days, probably more. But if you don't have the money for that, load up YouTube, watch some YouTube videos. You can learn a ton from YouTube. Watch some Bill Wallace Superfoot. He has some really great fighting techniques. And he's an old man now, but he's still teaching. And now he has free videos on YouTube. That's all I have to say for today's coaching video. If you are somebody who tends to get in street fights, let us know in the comments below. What are your best techniques? And why are you getting into these fights, man? And share your experiences below in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.